Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Diane Richards, and she is a psychic medium. And I'm curious to how she got to be a psychic medium. What in her life led her to this point?
Hi, thank you so much for interviewing me today. I'm really excited. I think that, like what most people say, you hear people who are mediums say, oh, they knew from the time they were children. They had experiences when they were young. I did too. But like most people, you learn to block it out. You learn to think that, this isn't normal, and I use that, word discretionally. However, so I went through life. I became a workaholic. Got a lot of degrees in college, was a teacher, was a counselor, was a principal. I opened my own school, and just nothing but work, trying to find satisfaction, prove myself, I think. Until I went to a workshop for continuing ed credits with Dr. Brian Weiss, who does past life regressions. Didn't realize that he was going to perform past life regressions during this workshop. And I had one of the most phenomenal past life regressions I've ever experienced. And it left me wanting more and wanting to really figure out who this person was that came through in my past life regression. Is this really
What was that like? Did it just take you over, or like you were there?
Took me over like I was there. And I kept thinking, the more I feel it, the more real it is. And I felt it. I mean, there were tears coming down my cheeks during the experience. I felt as though I was that person reliving a life, like I was just watching myself.
Was it scary?
So
Was it like you couldn't get back to now? Like, did you know like where you were now, or?
No, I felt because when you're under that hypnotic state, and you hear, and you hear, I heard Dr. Weiss's voice saying, if you ever feel uncomfortable, go back to the garden where we started and rest. But I never felt uncomfortable. I was fascinated. I was overcome with love and just wanting to know more. So after that experience, that's what I did. I really dove into researching and finding out who this person was, and actually did. So everything that came through in my past life regression, there was historical research to back up who it was, the time period where I saw. Which was in the late 1800s, the place, which was in Savannah. And there were some very eerie coincidences. Our lives, the life that I was still doing. Here I had started my own school to help teenagers. And this woman back in the 1800s, she too started her own school to help students in Savannah. I always wanted my school to be in a Victorian home. Had no idea why, but drove my realtor nuts. No, you don't understand. It has to be a home. It has to be in a home. She started her school in like the very same Victorian home I had been searching for in this life to open my school. I actually got to see the house. It's still standing. So there were so many. I just was like, oh, I'm really repeating a life that I've already lived. And it made me realize that there's so much more out there, which led me to do further research, to take more classes. And it was during another class with Dr. Brian Weiss, where he paired us with a stranger. And we had to do psychometry, where we were holding something of someone as a stranger's, and we had to get a reading. And I read my partner. And after it, I got these beautiful messages of so much. And she said to me, are you a medium? Are you a psychic? And I'm like, no, not really, because I was still teaching, and I had my own school at the time. And she says, you just saved my life. My husband came through, died 6 months ago, and I've been going to mediums and psychics to get the exact message you just gave me. And if I didn't get it tonight, I had decided I was going to end my life. Now, how do you go back to your real world? I mean, how do you go back to your everyday living?
What did that feel
After
like, getting that
someone-
message? Was it really audible outside you? Was it inside you?
I get messages in so many different ways, but very audible, very feeling it. I can feel, I can hear. I get very emotional because I can feel the person's emotions as well. It comes to me in visions, in almost like little movie clips sometimes. So it's just about me being able to translate that to the person. So
That's what I'm trying to understand, because my near-death experiences, there was these little movie clips, what I call them too. And so it's like, that is how they communicate sometimes, to show
Yes.
you the picture. So you get the picture. And it's fascinating because
Right.
it's like high tech. Like, we don't have that capability here, but maybe in the future we will. Like, I want to show you something to explain it, and poof, here it is. See this? Watch this
Right.
little scenario. And then, yeah.
And that's what I tell my clients too. I said, sometimes it comes just like it's a movie clip, and I have to watch it. And then what happens is, it's about the medium being able to translate and interpret what they see correctly or meaningfully to the sitter. And that's where it can get tricky. But yeah, it's true. It's these fascinating little glimpses that they show you.
Is the tricky part trying to decide what you're seeing and what imagination's trying to do with it?
At first, I think when mediums started at first, now I have no problem deciphering. I know when it's spirit, because I know how to block my ego and myself out before I do a reading.
How did you learn to do that? Just practice?
A lot of practice, taking a lot of great courses with a lot of great people, from Arthur Finley. I took a lot of courses with them. So, practice and just being able, and the more you practice and the more validation you get from your sitter saying, oh my gosh, it's exactly right, the easier it becomes, the less you doubt yourself. There's no room for doubt, because if I doubted or questioned, what was coming to me, I wouldn't be saying anything. I'd be like, oh. Now,
sitter, that's the person you're reading?
Yes, the sitter is the person that you're reading, the person that's coming for the for the reading.
Okay.
And for the messages. Wow. But it's fascinating, because there's still the spirit world is still so around us, and still so connected, and still sees what we are doing, and still is encouraging us. The spirit world also learns from us. I've had messages come through where where a father will say to the daughter, you really helped me learn while I'm on the other side, how to be a better person now, how, even though in the soul life, how to, you've made me see where, I can now see my wrongs, or, and I apologize. So they're still learning on the other side. They're still growing. There's still room for apologies and congratulations and all those wonderful things. They're still at your wedding. They know when their grandchildren are born. And I think it's so amazing when they come through, when they share these events. It's just validation that we don't die. I mean, our spirit doesn't die.
I remember this part during my drowning, that there's these two boys, this ghost kid running around, and there's these two boys walking along the highway, and I was trying to talk to them, and I thought, gosh, they're ignoring me just like my siblings do. And I just kept asking, where you going? What are you doing? And this one started answering me, but it was like mental. And now that I'm older, I'm thinking, I'm sure that kid had no idea who he was talking to. It's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Well, we've been fishing. We're late getting home. We're in a hurry getting home. And he's talking to me. And it makes me think now that I'm older, how much of what is coming into us is a spirit is, hey, what's going on? Just popping in just out of nowhere.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I was at a wake years ago, at a mass. It was a Catholic mass, and I thought it was extremely interesting how the priest in the church, because you don't normally hear this type of stuff, was saying back before we had language, we had that humans developed language, that we all did communicate telepathically. And that is what our loved ones on the other side do. They communicate telepathically. And if we tune into that and, we work that muscle that is still there, that we can communicate telepathically, we will be able to communicate with them.
That's
And
fascinating.
I thought that was fascinating, because that really is what they're doing.
Yeah, because you start to think about it, before we had language, how did they, there had to
Right.
be a lot of, we think, okay, I get it, without talking.
Right. So that made so much sense to me. And the fact
Yeah.
that it was being brought forward in a formal religious church, I was like, geez, that's really interesting.
It's like a lost art.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because we don't need to do that anymore. We have language.
It seems like that's what we do with our pets.
Yes, exactly. And that's why they say small children and animals are very sensitive to the spirit world. Because really that's their language at that point. They're still, yeah.
One of my granddaughters, when she was a baby, her parents said, watch her. She would be looking at something on the wall. And they could tell, because it was their baby, and they're not the type person to talk about things like that. And they said, she is seeing someone. It's just like she's communicating, and she sees something on the wall and she's interacting with it before she could talk.
Right.
It was just the way it is.
It is. And then as we get older, that's why I say most mediums remember as children having experiences, and then we learn to push all that aside and say, we explain it away. And it is about exercising that muscle back into strength and using it again. And the more you exercise it and the more you use it, and the more trust you build with the spirit world, the easier it is to communicate, and the more they communicate.
I'm curious if, and maybe you don't know, or maybe nobody's really thought about it, but I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm wondering if, like, I have a very good long-term memory. My short-term memory is not very good. And like, I can remember entire conversations a long time ago. And I'm just wondering if someone that has a good long-term memory are better equipped to go back in a past life during those sessions. I'm just curious.
I wonder. I don't know. I don't know if they've done research on that, but it would make sense, because there are people who are much more susceptible to going under and remembering. And I have a much better long-term memory than short-term memory, much better. So that would be interesting to find out. But there are some people who are not, who do not go under, who do not reach that stage, that hypnotic stage, easily. Where I didn't realize I could.
That you couldn't?
That I didn't realize that I could reach that stage so easily, because I went right under.
Yeah, because you never had before, and then first time, bam.
No, it was, and once you get there, I always say that spirituality is an experience. You really, you don't really understand it until you have that experience, whether it's an NDE or whatever, or you see an apparition and you saw an apparition, or you whatever it is, it's your experience that can, changes your thought about it.
It seems like it opens those eyes, whatever those eyes are that sees.
Right.
I've
It's
always been
true.
fascinated when I hear about someone that all of a sudden wakes up one day, maybe after an accident or just out of the blue, and they're talking another language or they have an accent all of a sudden. Like, what in the
Yes.
world?
See, because there's just so many pieces. People will ask me, well, if there's reincarnation or if we come back, how can it's suppose my father passes and he decides to come back? How are you still talking to him? And I believe that we have a big soul on the other side, and these are pieces, so we can always get in touch with those pieces when they go back, they're there. But our main soul may say, there's more I want to learn. So all these are parts of us. So
And
this in my book, Finding Emelyn, the Emelyn was the name of the teacher that from the 1800s that came through in my past life regression that I felt so much was me. Well, I'm here. How did I communicate with her? Well, because that piece is still there.
after my second NDE, when I was 25, I had stepped down in the living room and saw my husband and three little boys curled up in front of the TV asleep. And I felt bliss because I had been mourning the twins, and I felt bliss for the first time since all that happened. And I just was in this awe of how beautiful they were, just laying there curled up asleep. And it was just like lost in this just moment, just looking at them, appreciating it. All of a sudden, it's 1986. All of a sudden, I'm back in 1966. I'm 5 years old. I'm standing there knocking on the bathroom door. I'm in my nightgown. It's at night. And my dad is in the bathroom and the door's cracked a little bit. And he gets so mad that I'm bothering him that he slams the newspaper shut, like angry. And I jumped and I felt I can't get back to 1986. I'm stuck. And scared me so bad that I ran out of the room, went out the back door. But I was just, the beginning of it, I was just standing there knocking on the bathroom door. I got to pee. And then my dad snapped that newspaper and I jumped. I was scared and I ran out the back door and here this guy, a friend of my husband's, come around to the back door. He said, I was knocking on the front door and heard the TV out, figured you couldn't hear me. So I come around back and I about ran into him. And he went and woke my husband up. And he said, you need to go see her. He said, something's wrong. My husband just like, come on in, open the beer. And I'm outside in the night shaking. What was that? And I felt I couldn't fully get back. I mean, I was back, but it felt like it was wanting to slip back there. It's like it's in between. And it was maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, maybe it was 10 minutes. I don't know, but I was so scared I was going to go back there and be stuck. I didn't know what to make of that.
Well, that's a real trauma bond. And trauma bonds can be triggered by anything. So then knock on that door, triggered you right back there. And that's something that hasn't healed. And that's why healing our past lives, I mean, it's even the past that we're currently living now, the things that are in our past now. If we don't work through those, things like that will continue to happen.
I started going to bed at night. It's like, what do I remember? Relax, you're safe. So I'm being so scared. What happened? And I thought, was I sexually abused? Because my dad had sexually abused my disabled sister. And I remember what was it, whatever it is. I just was curious. And finally, months later, I remembered it. It was nothing about sexual abuse. What it was is my dad, the next thing that happened is my dad come to the door and he said, now you go sit on the toilet and you don't get up till morning. And you're not going to tell your mother. So I sat there all night. My little tiny butt got sore from the rim of the toilet. And I mean, I can see the dippity-doo jar sitting on the shelf. I can remember so much. And then all of a sudden, and this makes no sense, maybe you understand, I seen, it seems to me like a little boy, this little spirit goes up on his elbows and knees up the wall. And he had a little window above the toilet, the top of the wall, and it went through the window and out. And I'm sitting there thinking, is that me? am I outside? Is somebody going to see me like in their house, like neighbors playing with the kids' toys, and I'm going to get in trouble? And I'm sitting there thinking I'm going to get in trouble. What are they doing out there? Thinking it's me. And then as I got older, I'm thinking, I think that was a little boy. I keep thinking this little boy every time I see it. I think that was like a spirit in me, like maybe in my drowning, something come in me. I don't know, but it just
Well,
like it, and it left me. I couldn't make sense of it.
because you were sitting for so long, and your mind had to be still. I mean, your mind has to be still in order to see and feel the spirit world. That's why so many mediums will sit in meditation for so long, or they'll sit in their they'll just sit in quiet, dark rooms, because that's when you can actually see and feel, and it's easier. So that might have been because you had been sitting there and it opened up. So, it allowed.
Does that happen, do you think? Like spirits come in and just stay and then leave? I mean, I don't know.
Sure, they could. And that could have been, it could have been someone that was just there to let you know that it was okay, that you would be getting out. It could be representing that this isn't going to be forever. That, even though this door is closed, the window will open and you're not going to be living this life forever.
Yeah.
It could have been a message. It could have been a lot of things. But the fact that you felt it and it was real to you.
And I think this happened because I have trouble with sequence and time of events, even though I have a strong memory, long-term. I have trouble with sequence events. And so I don't know if it was right after I recalled the drowning, because I recalled my drowning at 5 years old after my 25-year-old NDE. And so it would make sense if this happened after I recalled the drowning, because I hadn't no memory of the drowning, and my family verified, oh yeah, you did, you drowned. And so, I'm thinking maybe these things that happened after the drowning are coming out now, because things started coming to me after that. And like say time frame to say, okay, well, when did this memory come, and when that, I couldn't say for certain. But and then I would remember waking up from a nap, and there was 3 people standing there, and they were dressed like 100 years ago. Like there was 2 women and a man, and it was a tall man. He had the bibs and a like old dress shirt and short hair, and an older woman, a younger woman, and they were dressed like the long aprons and the long dresses, hair pulled back in a bun the same way. And they were just down there. They were standing there looking at me. And I have no idea why, but I don't know if I'm just trying to make sense of it in my young little 5-year-old brain, because it's after my drowning. I thought, why are they looking at me like I'm in a coffin? Do they think I'm like their grandmother or something? And they're looking down the coffin at someone that's not, but it's not me. I'm not whoever they think. I don't know these people, but they're looking at me like you look at someone in a coffin, that mourning, that sadness, like, oh, they're dead. They were just looking at me like that. They didn't say anything. And I kept covering my eyes. I would go away. Like, okay, I'm not going to open my eyes again until you go away. Then finally they were gone. I went and found my mom in the kitchen. I said, who was those people in my room? Because to me, they were real. And she goes, nobody's in your room. And I described what they look like. And she goes, well, there's some people up the road that, they don't have any running water, electric. And, she goes, but they moved. Because I had my sister, when she went from school that day, walk up the hill. I wanted to go to the house. So there's people, I was so curious, who was these people in my room? But I just never forgot it. It's like, once all these memories start coming back, like, who were they? Why was they looking at me like that? And it felt like, I don't know why, but every time I think of it, I come up with this explanation, like they were looking at an old woman in a casket. But it wasn't her, it was me. And I don't know why I think that. Crazy.
Well, I compare it to, so the spirit world can sense people who are open. It's almost like a lighthouse. So they see that your light is on, and then this person will be able to see me or hear me, and let me go go to them. So maybe they were trying to get a message out. Maybe they, and here you are, you don't know what to do with it. Yeah, you can see them, you know, but what do you do with that at 5 years old? Well, you know,
Nothing.
what? So perhaps, especially after your NDE, you were really opened up to the spirit world, and they know that. And then it's about training them, because you do have to train them when you're open, when you're available, when you're not. You have to, because your light can't always be on. But at 5 years old, your light is on. Oh, look, I can stop in and see this person.
Yeah, and
But
now, you know, at funerals, I have seen people, or after the funeral, they'll come to me, and I'm okay now. You know, at 5 years old, that scared me to death.
right, right. That's why so many children are afraid, and they have the nightmares, and they see things at night, and they, one of them actually are seeing things.
But you know, what I see now isn't clear like that. Like, oh, this is a real person. Who are they in my room? It's more like a see, feel, knowing. It's not exact, you know, form.
Right, right. And I think that's the way most people, that, you know, all the different clairs, the senses, that usually comes from clear feeling, clear knowing, and clear sensing. Seeing full apparitions is rare. I don't know why when we're younger we tend to see them, because now I'm thinking like, my grandfather came right to me at 5 years old, right after he passed.
Was he clear?
Very clear. And to this day, I see exactly what he was wearing. I could smell him, you know. Yeah, and he had just passed.
Do you think some people are born with this, or do you think something happened and, you know, young in life that opened us up, or maybe both, or either or?
I think that most people have the capability to do this on some level, or to be open on some level. I also think that older souls are more open and find this easier to do, or it happens to them more often. But I think if you're very closed off and you just don't want to go there, those are the people that it doesn't work for.
My ex-mother-in-law, she started appearing at night after her funeral. And finally I got up one night and I said, okay, Mary, Janice is my second mother-in-law. I said, okay, Mary. And I got out my family Bible. I went in the living room and sat in the living room with the recliner, got the family Bible, and I got a pen. And I said, you're here to tell me something. Now, I'm not going to be afraid. I know she's not going to hurt me. So what is it? And it wasn't words. All of a sudden, right in front of me, I could tell her husband was there too. But it was, and she was more forward than him. It was a scenario, a memory opened up, just as clear as can be, that I forgot all about. And it was when I was married to their son, and I had just walked in their house, and I can see so clear that my father-in-law was standing out in front of the phone that was on the wall, the way we used to have, and she was at the kitchen doing dishes in front of the sink. I can see exactly where they were and where I was. And as soon as I walk in, we call him Pappy, my ex-father-in-law. He said, you're our Loretta. I'm like, what? Loretta was their stillborn. They had 12 kids. She would have been 13. She was stillborn. And I'm born in February. She was born in April. He said, you're our Loretta. And they've never said anything weird like that, you know. And I'm like, what? And he says, yep. He says, me and mommy. That's what he called his wife, mommy. He says, me and mommy talked about it. And she's there to sing. And she goes like, yes. And she shakes her head, yes. And he says, me and mommy talked about it. He says, you look like you could be one of our kids, and we love you like a daughter. You are our Loretta. And I took it at the time as, you're nuts. I'm not your Loretta. And I walked right back out of the door, shaking my head, rolling my eyes. You know, and now she's bringing this memory, and I'm like, thinking, you know, is she letting me know that in some odd way I'm like her reincarnated daughter, or is she just letting me know we loved you like a daughter? Yeah, I don't know, but I was like, I'll write this down exactly what, happened. And then a few months later, like she just kept popping up when I'd be upstairs. And so one day I was like, okay, this is driving me crazy because I'm not used to this stuff. And I was like sitting there in the hall talking to nobody, but knowing she's there. And I said, if you're real, I said, go to the closet and I'm going to open the door. And if you're not there, I'm going to know I'm crazy. And that's going to be the end of it. So I go take a deep breath at the closet door. I'm thinking, finally, I'm going to prove myself. You are so crazy, and stop this, thinking that she's popping in here and there. And I swung open the closet, and straight back from the door on the wall is a full-length mirror. And there was a deep purple swirl, like a lava lamp swirl, hovering maybe a couple feet off the floor, maybe 3-4 feet tall. And it was just swirl, this beautiful deep purple light. And I screamed and I shut the door and I jumped on the bed and I covered the cover.
He said, I'm not crazy.
I wasn't ready to see anything.
Now, do you ever give readings to other people?
No, my stuff is not anything I can control or bring on. It just happens out of the blue.
Right. Yeah. It takes practice. You have to learn how to control it and direct it.
The most recent profound thing was a couple years ago. We had pulled over to a car swerved off the road right in front of us, and we stopped and we called, for the State Highway Patrol, and we're sitting there talking to some other people that pulled over, and so we're done with that, and we pull into another town coming home, and there's a big sign. I've lived here 40 years, never seen this before. Big road closed sign, like you would put up if there was a flood, but it said due to accident. Like, well, I never seen that before. And so my husband got out and asked the cops, he says, can we go on through? Because we got to turn off to our road to go home. And they said, yeah, the accidents are further down past that, so you can go ahead. But when as soon as I seen that road closed sign, I knew what happened. And my husband got out to ask that question. And while he's gone, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what happened. I know what happened. And he come in and I said, it was a motorcycle accident, wasn't it? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm telling you, there was a woman on the back of that motorcycle and they don't know she was there. She got flown off the bike and they don't know she's there. I got to go there. He says, we can't go down there. He says, we're not allowed to go down that far. And I thought, okay, when I get home, I'm going to call my friend because she lives right near where I think this happened. And so I called her and I said, can you see that accident? Do you know how many people? She said, yeah, it was just one guy. And by then it's already on the news on my phone. And it's like one person. I said, I know there's a woman. I know there is. And my husband wasn't paying attention to me. I was like, I need to go down there. He said, you can't go down there. They got everything blocked off. So I asked my friend, do you think if I went down there, you think I'd go walking around? She said, well, the cops are down there. And I talked myself out of it. And I kept watching the news. And the next morning, a son called and State Highway Patrol. He says, we think my mom was on that motorcycle. That guy on the motorcycle was taking her to see her son, like the anniversary of his death, to where he died. And they were on their way back or to there. I think they were way back. And we think maybe she was with him, and they looked again and they found her. And I said, I need to go there. I don't know why. I need to go to that spot where they found her. I just was so glad, and I was so sorry. And I went there and I just felt all these feelings. And I'm like, this didn't happen for no reason. And so while we're sitting there, I called my son and I said, Jeremy, please get rid of that motorcycle. He said, Mom, I just sold it. Because I had been bugging him, get rid of that motorcycle, Jeremy. I just got a bad feeling, get rid of his. Mom, I just sold it. So I've been nagging at him. But I will always kick myself for not getting in my car and going down there and looking for her. Like, maybe I could have, saved her life by finding her. Maybe she was dead on impact. I don't know. But it was just I didn't follow through. And I don't know if you've had things like that where you.
Oh, I've had things like that. And I just want to let you know that she was dead on impact. She was. So please don't burden yourself with that. There was nothing you could have done. And it really.
I wondered too, maybe I didn't go. Maybe she wanted to be with her son, Maybe she wanted to go. I don't know. Maybe she's in between. But anyway, so you've had things.
Yeah. Oh, I've had things where, well, I have worked with paranormal investigators and sometimes with the police to help find things and to figure out what's happened. And that I love doing that, or you just get this feeling, you just know, or they take you to an area and I can say, it happened here, this is what happened. And, most of the time it's accurate. The only problem is they can't take a medium's word into court, it just helps them on their, help them figure things out. But, I have definitely picked things up with murders. But
Yeah.
there
I
was
used to work
this
at
one.
Children's Services as an investigator, and I know what you're saying.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Oh, that's a tough job.
Yeah. First month I was there, I was in training, walked in an apartment, and I didn't know I had any feelings that amount to anything, I was just 20, I was 29. And I walked in an apartment and there was a baby in a carrier on the floor. I'm like, what in the world is that baby on the floor in a carrier? That's not what you do with babies. It's just like you drop a bag of groceries and go on, it's just, and I went over and I thought he was dead when I first looked at him. He was gray, his lifeless. And I put my hand on his chest, see if he was breathing. And I told the investigator, something wrong with this baby. He says, whoa, he's fine. Well, he wasn't a father. And I thought, it's just mother instincts. And I was like, no, something's wrong with this baby. He's, well, if you feel that strongly, tell the supervisor. So it was like 5 minutes away from the office. I ran back. There's something wrong with that baby. And got him to the hospital. He had failure to thrive. He's dehydrated. And he was born with problems. And yeah.
I actually adopted 2 children through the service, so I know that.
We did too. We adopted, had foster kids. But yeah, it's just like they ended up giving me like 75% of the cases the first 5 years I was there. I had a knack for confessions too. Getting confessions very easily.
Oh, okay. To get people to confess to you.
Mm-hmm. I would just listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And first time that happened, and I got a name for myself after that, is I was still new. And 2 investigators come and said, we were told by the director to take you. They were starting to know I had a knack for this. They take you with us. There was this big case. It was all over the news. And this boy, a teenage boy, I think he was 14, he come up missing. And he was found with the Christian school teacher, a guy. Nobody was talking, not the boy, not the man. They couldn't get a peep out why, what happened. And the school teacher's house was just burned down. His car was burnt down. And they seen this teacher and this boy walk along a highway. And there are no answers. And this teacher was at these vigils with the parents and the whole community looking for the boy because he was missing. And then they found him together and nobody's talking. So they took me with them. And on the way, I'm sitting in the back seat, and these 2 guys, one's military, one's former sheriff deputy. Yeah, you're gonna get this guy, and they're treating me like, why we gotta take the girl? I was just a little 100-pound thing back then. And I don't know why. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I just watch them, I guess. And so we went in the jail, and they had the inmates sitting up front. And this little room, and they walk in there, you're gonna tell us, blah blah blah. And the guy's like, get out here, I ain't talking to you, and all this. And he's got his shackles and chains and his orange jumpsuit. And they started to walk out, and they turned around, this holding the door, and looked at me, and I'm standing there. And I asked the inmate, I said, I don't know what their problem is. I said, can I talk to you? And he said, yes, you can. And the guy's like, what are you doing? And they went out and left me alone sitting there with him across the table. And I said, yeah, I apologize how they treated him. And I said, I talked to the boy, we're just concerned. Do you have concerns about his, treatment by his parents or any problems in the home, or, how did you get to know him, and spilled the whole thing. He was in love with him. He had been sexually abusing him, and he kidnapped him, and the cops was on his trail. So he burnt down his house. They were on the run. And so he burnt down his car, and somebody just happened to see him.
Oh my God.
And I turned on a tape recorder. I said, now, is it okay? I said, I have short-term memory problem. Is it okay if I turn on tape recorder so I don't get anything wrong? He said, yeah, go ahead. I had the whole thing on the tape recorder. I walked out of there, and them guys like, what are you doing? What are you talking to him about? So I got full confession. I walked to the car. It's quiet going back to the office.
And how did that make you feel?
I just thought, well, don't treat people like that. Treat people like a human being. Everybody wants to tell their story.
That's true. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be validated, and they want to tell their story. And if you understand that, yeah.
And he wanted to report abuse by the parents. And I was children's services. So he took the opportunity to make sure this boy's safe in his home. That was his angle for telling me.
Right.
And I didn't judge him. He's talking about the sexual abuse and stuff. And I didn't blink. I didn't, I didn't make a face.
Right. No, you can't. You can't react. No. Oh my gosh. Now, I had a crazy thing, but this was in the spirit world. I had this father come to me in spirit. I had no idea. I was doing an open forum, and this father came and said that his daughter had been killed by her husband. It was a murder-suicide. And then the husband killed himself. And that he was so upset because they were buried on top of each other. And he says, how could they have buried my beautiful daughter with that man that killed her right on top? And can you please go do a blessing or have someone do something? I'm like, I don't know. Figure the whole thing, contacted someone. Absolutely true. The whole thing was true. They went there. They saw that, yes, they are buried on top of each other. They had someone come out and do a blessing, and just, because they weren't who's gonna move it at this point. But I thought that was crazy.
Yeah. I had a murder-suicide at Children's Services, and the dad was there to say goodbye to the children. He just killed their mother. And, well, it wasn't suicide. He didn't kill himself. He killed the wife, I guess. And so the children come in to say goodbye. They were like teenagers. And one was really mad at the dad. One was really close with the dad. I think there was 3 kids. And the cops were like, we're not going to allow them kids to see the dad. But the judge said they had to. The kids was able to say goodbye if they wanted to. I think one refused to go in, 2 went in. And one just sat on her dad's lap crying, Daddy, Daddy, I love you. And he's crying. And I just sat there, I didn't do any good for me to glare at him, make faces, he's going to prison the rest of his life.
Right.
He's destroyed his family. He's never going to see his kids again. But those cops could not go in that room with that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because you really can't, you can't let your judgment or your ego get in the way with that, because they'll get what's intended to happen to them at some point. It's not our job. And so yes, I have worked on cases and have done things like that. I haven't in years though, because I'm so booked with doing readings. I also do retreats. I just got back from doing a week retreat in Asheville, North Carolina. And I'm doing another one in April. It's about healing your inner child. So I do a lot of those type of things now. But mostly
how does that work with the psychic stuff and healing inner child?
Well, not necessarily. I've done retreats where it's about mediumship and learning the tools and how to do. This particular one is about, for yourself, how you can't really move forward until you heal your inner child, and how. So we do certain meditations, we do certain readings just to reach your inner child. We have workshops and exercise planned. We do crystal work that is just aimed with healing crystals that are just really aimed for healing your inner child. So everything we do is based for healing that inner child. So it's less medium and more healing type activities, Reiki, that sort of thing.
I know for me and one other lady I was interviewing here a while back, she was the same way. When we write our memoir, and you write about your childhood, and then now you're an adult, you're a mother, and you're able to go back and mother that child that you were, and that is such a profound feeling. To see, to shed a tear for that child instead of this and this happened, now I'm an adult, but yeah, just like you're bouncing between these two, when you have PTSD, the two worlds, and then to be able to see it from different eyes as that shouldn't have happened to her, as if it's someone else.
Right. And once again, acknowledge that, nurture, and release, and also thank that child, because that child protected you and helped you, to be who you are now. But a lot of the tools that you're still using as a child aren't necessary anymore. A lot of our reactions are still from that wounded child. So it's about, recognizing that and moving on, because a lot of times, and even with mediumship, you really can't do your best if you're still holding on. You can't give your best to someone else if you're still holding on to all these wounds yourself. So it's a constant, you're constantly working on yourself. It's a never-ending journey.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like they are dead spirits, of our child spirit, our teenage spirit, our young mother spirit, the different tragedies as you become older, and all these people seem like these characters in like in a movie in your life, and they're separate in some way. It almost seems like another spirit.
Yeah, because we really are, we are every age that we were at one point. That's all those different people, and that's different ages make up who we are. And they're all still like living within us. So that's a really good point. Yeah, it is. It's like there's spirits that are still there, and we can ignore them, and it can build, and we can explode or not handle things correctly, or we can deal with it.
I wonder if it's any different than, when you had past life regression and you went back. If it's any different than that. I mean, you have their memory, just like I would have a memory of, a toddler or whatever.
It's true. It's true. And, I say that in my book too. It doesn't matter which past life or you're healing. You have to, because really your childhood is your past life. So, and a lot of us build walls around that.
Yeah, someone said the other day, when you start building walls, you realize you've only held yourself in. You've only blocked yourself in. You didn't really block out anybody. You just blocked yourself in. So I thought that was interesting.
So true. That's it exactly. And that's what I learned. And then I was not sharing my true self then with certain people, especially people that I put that wall. Oof.
Do you think that has part of it, finding your true self, into finding these psychic experiences, being open up to the other realm that's just beyond our reach, is when we get to know ourselves, like our own soul, and be within our own, comfortable in our own soul before we can expand?
Absolutely. 1,010%. I believe that. And that's why, like, you know, like these workshops, a lot of them are for mediums who, well, I'm stuck. I can't get to, well, you're stuck because you're stuck. We can do as many mediumship classes as you want, but until we work through what's inside you that's keeping you from moving forward. Exactly. And it's about reaching that spiritual place and feeling it, understanding, and being able to let go and move on.
When I would start allowing myself to remember my near-death experiences without the fear of them, fear of the memory, fear I was going crazy, and just relax and remember being in the light, or remember being out of my body, and just kind of stay there a minute and just relax. I was realizing the timelessness of it. You know, it's history, it's ancient, but yet it's now, and yet it's way in the future. There's so much in that realm, and I call it the land of knowing, and the wisdom that just comes there, and the telepathic communication, and the voices that come in. And it seems like then when you come back, you're like, I know what it's like to be fully myself. And now
Right.
I'm back and I'm just a piece of myself, but I'm trying to expand back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it seems like when you do that, when you start expanding and open up, then that's when you don't deny when you think you just saw something, or you think somebody just flew down and said something, or come through the window at you and yell something, or however it comes.
It's
Now
true.
yours are not spontaneous. Yours are like intentional, like, okay, we got to
When I
find
do
this.
readings for people, it's intentional, but I still get spontaneous. Not as, and like I said, because I do so many readings daily and throughout the week, I've learned to shut it off a little more at night, so I don't have spontaneous as much, which I really miss. So when I go on vacation or something, I'm always looking for some spontaneous, like, woo, look at that, I loved that, or, you know, so I let it roll then. But for work purposes, and I hate to say work because this is not really classified as work for me, but because of what I do, and I do so many a day, I have to have those boundaries.
How did you switch from just starting to do this to famous?
Well, I wouldn't say famous, but I mean, I worked hard, and a lot of it was word of mouth. And I just really put a lot of time and practice, and I'm the type of person, if I'm going to do something, I'm really going to do my best to do my best.
Is there a way you have of preparing? Like when I go to do a talk about my NDE, like I get alone, I pray, I get into that quiet realm. Do you do some practice
Yeah.
like that?
Mm-hmm. All the time. Sometimes I'll play a certain song, just sit in that quiet moment. I always I always ask my guides to come forward. I always thank the spirit world. So I always have an open and a closing that I do beforehand and after. It's
I
important.
appreciate you coming on. I know. I was like,
Thank
wow,
you.
okay. This is cool.
Well,
Is there
thank you
anything
so
that
much for having me.
is there anything we haven't went over that you would like to share?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I could talk about this subject all day long. So I mean,
Now, what about your book? Do you have a book, or?
I do. It's called Finding Emelyn, How I Connected with a Past Life, the Other Side, and My Purpose. And it's just how connecting with the spirit and the experiences, there's a lot of spontaneous experiences shared in the book, how it just changed my whole path of, you know, of working the way I was working to doing this now and dedicating my life to doing spiritual work.
Do you think some people are just born with this gift, or?
I think some people are born remembering it more. You know?
I have a memory, the first paragraph of my book, I have a memory that I've always had. And even come to me right after my 5-year-old drowning. I have a memory, in the baby bed, and my siblings are running in the living room because there's a doorway. There's light there. It's like dark and dim in the room where I'm at. The door's open. I can see them running back and forth outside the living room playing. And I'm talking to God. Now, how in the heck that I had any concept of God? But I'm saying, excuse me, you, and how I'd even had language, But I'm saying, excuse me, you sent me to the wrong family. These people are weird and they don't like me, and you've made a mistake. I know I wasn't supposed to come here. You sent me the wrong family. And I waited to be switched, because in this memory, I have a memories. I'm sitting there waiting to be switched of a time that I'm going to say was in heaven. And I am so catered to, loved, cared for, every wish is granted. More want something and you're taken care of. And I have this memory. And so I know they're going to take care of me. You made a mistake, sent me the wrong family. And silence was my answer. Oh, nobody's coming. I'm on my own. And I felt abandoned.
Ooh.
And I never understood that feeling. But it never has left me. And after my 5-year-old drowning, during the drowning, I was told by a voice that said, God sends children here to be loved. That is why he sends them here. And I was just shown right before that my family didn't love me. And I go, oh, I didn't know that. And so when I heard that voice say it, I said, well, that's not fair. You just showed me my family don't love me. Now you tell me God sends your children to be loved. Well, that ain't right. And so I had this feeling of injustice, and I've been wronged. So when I wake up coughing up water, my brother's carrying my dead body back to the house, and my mom and sister's walking up ahead, and then he puts me down, and they go on up the house and leave me there. And I'm standing in front of the train tracks on this road between the pond and the house, sick from this pond water in my belly, so weak. And with this memory of everything just happened, just like it, because it just happened. Of me flying around over the highway. I was running, playing with kids in a yard. I was going in and out of houses. There's 2 boys I was talking to come back from fishing. I had walked into an old house, and there was old people sitting around, and there were ghosts. And they looked at me, and I said, where can I find kids to play with? They said, go to the graveyard. And so, I was just looking for kids to play with. And so, but there was also this memory of being told my family don't love me. And that was just proof to me. Because they just left me on the road and walked. They weren't, oh, thank God, you're okay. You were dead. Now they just went up. And so I have this knowledge that no 5-year-old should have. And so I didn't know the word suicide, but I looked back at the pond. I thought, I'm going to go back there. I know drowning hurts, but I'm not going to fight it this time, because I want to go back to doing what I was doing. Why would I go up to that family that I now know doesn't love me? And then I had that memory of the baby bed, where I felt I sent to the wrong family, and I felt it was my right. Like I was wronged and I had this right. And I took a step forward. I'm going to go back to this pond. And I thought my family's going to say, what the heck, because we rescued her. Now, she's ended up back to the pond, or maybe they never find me. It'd be a mystery, but I didn't care. I felt it was like my life and I had a right. And I took a step to do that. And all of a sudden, that female voice that I heard and didn't see when I was above the pond, she said, because I was just going to go play. I was just hovering over the water at that point. And she's, no, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back. And I thought, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. Once you're dead, you're dead. You don't go back, So I went on playing. But so now as I start to head to the pond, I see her now. And she hovers above the road in the shape of a thin woman with this flowing white gown. It's just white, like no details. And I started to go back, and she said, again, don't. Like, she told me the water, no, don't. They find you soon, you might go back. Now she says, no, don't. And I says, why not? They don't love me. And she didn't deny it. She went, well, you'll have a lot of love someday. I said, when? She's, when you have your own family, you'll have a lot of love then. So now that it seems like as I'm getting older, all of those type of messages and memories is just getting closer and more crisp and I'm more accepting of them and trying to understand, because I've had a few times where I knew it was an angel. One time, two angels come right up above me, and like, whoa. And they said, "Are you still praying for him?" Meaning my ex-father-in-law. I was like, "No." Like, me and my ex was divorced. I was remarried. It's like, no, because I used to pray for him. He had heart trouble and he had heart surgery and all. And I'm the one that got him to the hospital because he had a heart attack. And I said, "No." And they're like, "Oh, kind of like, what are we going to do now?" They took off. And I'm like, "Wait, come back. Do I need to pray for him? What's going on?" And I was left. So now, if I feel that again, you need to pray for somebody, I don't care who they are, I'll start praying. Because the guilt, if you don't, you're like, how could I not pray for somebody? If an angel comes upon you and says, "Are you praying?" You better start praying.
Right.
So,
Right. It also sounds as though your purpose here was to break the chain that your family had started, to break that pattern and to find that strength and that
once I
love.
turned 18, I had nothing to do with my biological family as much as possible.
Mhm.
And my boys are so successful. They're such good fathers and husbands, and they're such good people. And their kids, I love them, but they're just not doing so good. And some of them are, but some are doing okay. And not to compare, but I just know I made my generation better. I was the
Right.
first in my family to go to college,
Mhm.
and I'm very Christian, and they're doing stuff, I just don't approve of. But and I have a disabled sister. The oldest sibling is a disabled sister. And about 8 years old, I realized I'm now older than her, even though she's 7 years older than me. And I've been like her mother, and I'm her guardian now, and I just make sure she's taken care of. And like she's my baby, she's 67 years old. She's my baby.
Aw.
And they have not spoke to her in probably 40 years. They have nothing to do with her, nothing to do with me. We're just not good enough for them. Thank God we're not good enough for them, but yeah, so I can look back now and I'm glad I ended up being that way, because if I was like them, my sister would have been just out there with nobody.
See, but you got that message that children were here to be loved, and you listened to it and you followed it. And you now are this earth angel who has loved not only your own children, but now your sister who needed it.
And I went back up to bed that night, because after the angel said that, I went up to bed and I didn't even look for my mom. I thought, I'm on my own now. And I took off my little wet bathing suit, got my nightgown, I got my nursery rhyme book, and I flipped through and I stopped at the old woman that lived in the shoe. And suddenly I knew that I was going to love children that were unloved like me someday. I didn't know if I was going to have an orphanage or a lot of kids. And I ended up being the youngest foster parent in our area. And I had, but then I became, when I was like 28, become a therapeutic foster parent. We had 60 therapeutic foster kids in and out while I'm working at Children's Services. And we ended up adopting 9, which I had adopted my disabled sister boy too. So that made 10.
Wow.
So, yeah. And
Well,
one
I
day,
was a foster parent as well, but I didn't adopt, I adopted 2. Wow.
yeah. So it's just so strange. I look back and I said the other day, I said, it feels like God has this big, like 1,000-word puzzle, and it's all put together, and he takes it and he throws it on the floor and says, "Now go live your life."
Yep.
He knows how it's all going to be put, it's comes together piece at a time, and then till it's all completed. So
It's true. I use that a similar analogy in my book, and you don't have, but the thing is, you don't have the picture to look at to put the puzzle together, so you don't even know. Like, really,
like we're putting it together in the dark.
yeah, it's like you're putting it together piece by piece, but you're not, oh, okay, this fits, all right.
Now, what's your book about? Is it about your life, how you got into this, and cases?
It's about how I really healed my present life. It's about my past life regression and how that helped me let go of what I was doing now. And then how and all the kind of things that happened as a child and growing up of spiritual activity and messages I would get and things that I would do. And I loved playing in the cemetery as a child. I thought that was extremely normal until, other kids are like, what's wrong with that girl?
Isn't that weird? There's something in cemeteries. You can feel so much.
I feel so at home there, which is just, I would pack a lunch and go sit in the cemetery. I'd ride my bike there. I don't know. But so I talk about this stuff and then how you kind of tune it out. You don't want to tell people, you tune it out. And then when this hit me in the face, when I went to that workshop and was told by a woman, you just saved my life with that message, there's no turning back. There's just no turning back. And how I just went a whole new direction and dedicated myself, said, this is what I've known ever since I was young, that this has been a calling, and I'm giving in now. I'm not fighting it.
Awesome.
So it's about that journey, and it's about really becoming your authentic self, whether it be a medium, whether it doesn't matter. It's about connecting and healing so you can be you.
Now, what was that process like? Like you got certified, or what's it called?
Yeah, I did, what am I, a psychic counselor as well. I've been tested by people to be I'm an authentic medium. I'm a Reiki master. I have a healing certificate. So I've done a lot of that type of stuff along with, my formal education. But
How's the healing stuff work?
well, that was more for hands-on healing and crystal healing, and I just took a lot of those courses. I don't really practice that as much. I just was interested and wanted to learn, and I use that at my retreats, but I usually have somebody who's really good at that come in and do and work with people on that. But
how do they do it? Is like through their thoughts, their hands, their
well, it's like chakras, and they make grids all around your body, and it's the energy from the crystals and stuff that come and clear you out.
Okay.
Put in energy where it's really an interesting. This one woman who was she had such severe like anxiety and almost ADHD. She couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes. This woman made a grid for her out of crystals, how to lie down. She actually was still for an hour in that grid and didn't want to move. She says, I've never been this relaxed. And it kind of changed her, well, not forever, but at least for the day, she was very so, it's just learning about what different crystals will work for you for different things. But
I love that people that watch these shows and probably the other NDE shows, that they can start to recognize their own miracles in their own life, or their own little spirit things that maybe they just, I just thought that was crazy, but now I hear other people saying that they had something similar. And to me, it's like learning to appreciate when those things happen instead of push them away because you don't want to sound crazy or look crazy, and to the appreciation of them. It seems like it helps to be open to them.
As an adult, my grandmother was in hospice, and she was dying. She was in hospice, and I just spent the day with her. And I came home and I was exhausted, and I just sat down and I turned on the television, and all of a sudden I could feel someone in the room. And I turned, and there was an apparition of a man who I didn't know who he was, but I saw his hat. I saw what he was dressed in. He was shorter. And telepathically, I knew he said, it's your grandmother's time, and tell her I will be there waiting for her. And he nodded and was gone. Now my son comes in, my teenage son at the time. I'm like, did you see the man there? And he's like, no, Mom, I didn't see any man there. I'm like, swear to God. I said, but I don't know who he is. And he says he's waiting. He's going to be there for Grandma. The next day I go to hospice to see my grandma, and my uncle is there. And he says, oh, I'm so glad you're here, Diane. I went through Grandma's attic and I found this box that I thought you might be interested in. And on the top of the box is a scrapbook. Pink scrapbook. I start going through it, and I get to this page where it's all these Ann Landers posts cut out. I don't know if you remember Ann Landers. And it was
Dear
all
Abby
about,
and Ann Landers.
it was all about, yeah, it was all about writing in about biological fathers, missing biological fathers, never meeting your biological father. And on that page was the picture of the man that I saw in my room the night before. I looked at my uncle and I said, who's this? And he says, that's your grandmother's biological father who left when she was a baby, and she's always wanted to meet him. So I was like, I couldn't wait for like everyone to leave. And I got to like snuggle in bed and I told her. I went through the scrapbook with her and I said, I want you to know that this man, this picture, your biological father, came to me last night and said he will be waiting for you and you will meet him. And the tears started coming down her face. And she passed the night. So, I mean, I had no idea who he was. I had no idea I didn't know that my other grandfather was not my grandfather.
Before my last
grandfather was not.
Yeah. Before my last mother-in-law, my husband's mom died a couple years ago. She just got put in hospice and didn't think she'd go that quick. But so her daughter was going to stay with her the first week, and then I was going to come that weekend and stay with her till the end. Figured to be a few months. And so I went, I told my husband, I was like, we ain't going to wait till the end of the week. We need to go now. So we went ahead and took our camper and we set up right outside the house so we wouldn't be intruding everybody, and got it all set up. And so, okay, we'll be back the next day. And so come back the next day, and my sister-in-law said, Mom just saw Grandma. Of course, Grandma's passed. And Grandma said to her mom, she said, Janice, don't get in a hurry. Like, don't die too quick, don't get in a hurry. And oh, really? And I thought, this is going to be quick. This is going to be soon. If she's seeing her mom and she's communicating, she's going to go quick. So I thought, I'm so glad we went ahead and parked outside before the end of the week. And so I went over and I sat by her bed, and she put her hospital bed in front of the living room window. And I said, Janice, we've always talked about me doing a little memoir for you. I said, I think it's time. So I got a notebook and a pen, and I sat there beside her, and I did what I did with my memoir, only short version. I said, what's your earliest memory? And she was looking up the ceiling. She says, oh, I can remember being cuddled up in my dad's shoulder, and he's carrying me, and we were going to Woolworths or Kresge's, one of those stores, and we were going to buy Dad, I don't know what it was, he had to get a new jacket or something, and I could just see it, I could just feel him, and I knew I was walking her home. I knew I was walking her home to her family. And so I was, okay, what's your next memory? Oh, I had a black horse named King, and he had a brown mane and a brown tail. And she talked all about that. And she talked about playing with her brother, and she was just going through her life. And I was writing notes. 2 days later, I read it at her funeral. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like,
That's
I was
beautiful.
felt, and people said afterwards, they could hear her talking. It wasn't like me talking. It was like her, like she was standing there saying these things, because I was using the words she used, the way she talks, everything. I was just writing it. And I just stood up there and read it. And she talked about she first met her husband of 50 some, almost 60 years, he's sitting there. And he's just sitting there looking at me like, what's going on? And so it was a blessing for me, a privilege to be there with her and walk her home. And it was like the next day she went, no, I don't want to say a coma, but they had enough medicine in her where she wasn't feeling the pain. And, then she slowly passed, but I could feel her leaving. Like I put my hand, I was at the foot of her bed, like the next day, and I felt her feet and they were stiff and cold. And then up her legs, just like it went up her body from her feet up. And I knew it once it got here, she'd go. I could just feel her body going. And then like a year before that, my husband and I walked in her house and she's, look what I did. She's, I fell outside. It was just a bruise on her shin. And out of my mouth said, wound care. I'm like, where'd that come from? I says, I don't understand it, but you're going to need wound care. She's like, we're thinking for this bruise, why would I need wound care? She did. It was about a week later. Somehow that didn't heal, and she ended up this big hole inside her leg. They had to pack it, and I was driving her every day to wound care. And then they were coming to her house and packing it. Still wasn't healing, doing wound care. But it's just like, come to me, wound care. I'm like, I don't think I've ever said that word. But
Right.
yeah,
but
it's just
telepathically, somebody put that in your head that she would need that.
yeah.
It's amazing. It's no coincidence. You can't make this stuff up.
Right. Yeah. And I had a sister, my middle sister. She was a compulsive liar all the way through. I think she still probably is. I don't have anything to do with her anymore. She don't have nothing to do with me. But my mom said she started learning to lie the day she learned to talk. Not my disabled sister, but this other one. But she was always telling ghost stories. So I hated that kind of talk. And so when I started having these clear memories, after my NDE, I remember the drowning. I remembered, the 3 people there standing by my bed, and I remember this, I remember that. And then as I get everything clear, everything is clear. And I do not want to sound like her as a liar, nor do I want to sound crazy like my mentally ill sister. So I'm just going to keep quiet. And I think probably a lot of people do that.
Right. They do. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting world, the world of spirit.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm anxious to find out, what science is finding out now. Somebody said they're making a spirit phone, or somehow you're able to talk to spirits, and I don't know. Have you heard of Dr. Alan Bakken?
No.
He's a VA psychiatrist, and he would do for the PTSD patients, the veterans, he would do a rapid eye movement technique with them, and help them through therapy. Okay. And not much success rate with PTSD at all, or with this. And all of a sudden he started noticing his patients were starting to have like a near-death experience. And he started looking at his notes, and here he had unintentionally had changed an eye movement, a step. And so he started doing it consistently like that. And they were being healed in one session. They were seeing someone from the other side. Like an example he gave was this one guy, he could not bond with his children, with his wife. He basically, I think, stayed in a basement or something. He just blocked himself off from the world, because when he was in Vietnam, there was this little girl and his wife was wanting to adopt, but I guess they wouldn't be able to anyway, but he thought they were going to be able to adopt. And they got ambushed, and she was like murdered right in front of his face. And he could not get over that. All he could see was this girl being murdered. He was like stuck in this. And he did that rapid eye movement, did this little session. And all of a sudden, he's just got this big smile on his face. He saw her like he is standing there in heaven looking at her, and she's talking to him, and she's a beautiful young woman, perfectly healthy and healed, and how happy she is. And he left there, and he was never that way again. He bonded with his family, bonded with his children. He was the happiest guy ever. And he told story after story. So he started teaching other people to do it. And now it's a big thing. Like, people go get certified like a weekend. You have to have a master's degree to get certified, because I wanted to do it and I only have a bachelor's, so I'm not allowed. So I got the book. It's called Induced After Death Communication, IADC. It's just a little book, and in the back it tells exactly how to do it. And I tried it on my husband and it works.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
my
I'm gonna look into
husband's
that.
5-year-old brother died of leukemia. I think my husband was like a year older than him. And when his brother Jeffrey
Mhm.
was 5, he died of leukemia. And my husband says he didn't really remember him, can't remember what he looked like or anything. And we didn't really talk about it. I seen a few family photos, but they're all black and white. You know, the boys don't remember, you know, didn't see it much. And so I'm doing this. And so I told him to get to the core sadness, just like it says to do. And then I do the eye movements, this little stick I had, and then do this little step, and then the eye movements. And all of a sudden, while I'm doing it, I stop. Something catches the corner of my eye, and I look. There's a kitchen wall behind me. And I look, and this kitchen wall is now this big wheat field with this blue sky behind. And here is this young boy, like maybe 17 to 20, and he's running, and he's going like this, running, and then he turns to me and smiles and goes right back running. I'm like, whoa, what the world? And I turn
Wow.
back around, I look at my husband's face. He's got tears coming down his eyes. He said, that's my brother. He didn't see what I saw. He saw his brother at 5 years old. He says, I had not been able to remember what he looked like, but he saw him as he remembered him before he died. I'm like,
Oh,
this is weird. And that's the only time I've done it. And so I went to my mother-in-law, and what's weird is his parents are so prejudiced. I've gotten so many arguments with them over being prejudiced. And especially because we have 2 black grandchildren. And so I said, was Jeffrey darker skin, like Indian and brown eyes? Because their kids are all real white and crystal blue eyes. And she said, yeah. Because that's what I saw. This guy looked like an Indian. He had the dark brown eyes.
really?
He was more tanned. I couldn't have not known that.
No
And
way.
after that, I had this connection with him. And I think that's where the wound care come in. Because after that, my husband would say, you just got some kind of connection and knowing with my mom now. Because I started just knowing things that she needed and was taking care of her, and just really odd connection. So, but yeah, that works. It's induced after death communication. I swear by it. I mean, people have asked me, well, come do it with me, come do it with me. And I'm like, I'm afraid I would be carrying that person around with me if I did it. Because, you know, I felt I was carrying him around with me after that. And I don't want to carry your dad, and I don't want to carry your mom. And I don't want all these people bugging me.
Yeah, that's why the boundary is, like, you have to learn. Ugh, it's hard. It's hard to get. It's hard to get there because they do tend to like to stick around sometimes. But that, I'm going to look into that. That's really, there's so much healing that goes on with the world of spirit in so many ways. And so therapists are so open to it now too. I've worked with several therapists who recommend me to patients as well. And I'm glad to see that this is becoming a more trusted and respected field, and people are open to this more than they were in the past. Because,
And it's scary too. I had a guy on here a while back that he was on the Netflix series. I think it was like the 4th episode about mediums, and I think he had the last 30 minutes on there about I can't remember the name. They have a retreat like 3 times a year, and they have mediums there, and they certify mediums. I think of his name.
Right.
And his wife passed like a year ago. And we were talking about mediums, and we were talking about how there are fakes. Like, people have to be careful, because I know people that are into ears that never said they were psychic or anything. And all of a sudden one day they post on Facebook, your credit card, $100, and I'll tell you what the angels have to say, or this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, they are using their near-death experience, and they're fake. I know they're fake. And so people are so vulnerable. They see these near-death experiences, and I see it in NDE groups. They're asking people these questions. Oh, because you had an NDE, tell me. They'll put pictures up. What do you see of their dead child? What do you see? Is he okay? What message is he giving? And they're all saying this stuff. I'm like, why would you do that to people?
And it doesn't work that way. No. Yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame that there are people, but like with every profession, you have your quacks and you have your people that are just all in it for the wrong reason. That's why it's important that you research and you make sure that you are with someone who has been educated and has taken the time to invest the money and the time and the effort to learn and to practice. You can't just hang a shingle out and say, oh, I can do this now. There's a lot that goes into it to be able to do it responsibly, to do it professionally and lovingly and healing. Because that's what you want from this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I just tell people, just use your common sense. Like, I have all different kinds of speakers, I heard NDEers, and some say, well, I just don't think this is true, and I just don't like, well, then fine, ask, keep your questions, keep your common sense. I'm not saying everything I have on is the gospel. We're just discussing stuff,
Yeah.
we're throwing ideas out there.
And that's what I tell people. You have to use your common sense and what appeals to you and what works for you, because what works for you might not work for me. Crystals might work for somebody, they might not work for me. But I worked with a family whose daughter went to a psychic medium, one of those that have the bright lights, psychic medium, fluorescent lights hanging out. I'm not putting down anyone who does that. I'm just saying that's where she went. And the daughter spent a lot of money to get a reading and was told that she had this horrible spell on her. And in order to get it removed, she'd have to come back with $1,500.
Wow.
What did she do? She went home, got more money, went back. This beautiful girl, this was energetic girl, their parents found her hiding under her bed a month later, afraid to come out because she kept going back to this lady and the lady kept saying, I need more, it's not gone yet. And this girl said, I don't have any more money to give you. I don't. So beware. There are people that do that stuff.
And that's no different than, I know back when my grandma was alive, she had watched evangelists on TV and she was sending all kinds of money to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's no different. A scammer's a scammer. It can come in all forms.
Mm-hmm. So.
Well, thank you. I don't want to take up all your day. It's been very fun and informative.
It was a pleasure chatting with you so much. And I hope I see you again.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.